Oh, sorry. She can hear you.
Yeah, she can say something.
Jay, I hear you.
Ah, good. Sorry.
All right, I call to order this January 25th, 2021 special call board meeting. Would all please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, thank you. All right, everybody up there watching today, Miss Amy Lynn Holt is going to be joining us remotely. And so we will be doing voice votes for all of our votes today. And the first one up is going to be the agenda approval. I'll take a motion when someone's ready. Euler.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mrs. Case. Mrs. Bridges, yes or no? Yes. Yes, Ms. Case?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms.
Yes.
Ragoff?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Gaskey? Dr. Revis? And Mrs. Holt?
Yes.
Perfect. Next up on our agenda is going to be public comment. So this week we have received at least 70 public comments. That was up until the 9 o'clock hour this morning. Mr. Bridges, please make sure your microphone's on. I've got some folks saying they can't hear you. 70 public comments. We have 54 in favor of going back to school, whether that's A or B. We had 4 that were kind of in an other category. They sent us links to different things, and we had 12 folks that said they do not want to come back. That's in addition to, I'd say, 100 or 200 emails this week. We had 2 letters hand delivered today, along with another email with 333 signatures requesting that we go back to plan A or plan B. I'm not going to be reading those. That would take much more time than we have here today, and I think we kind of understand where people are coming from. Either you want to send your kids back or you're not comfortable with them going back, so we get that. We will post those online after this meeting. Probably they'll be on there tomorrow morning, and everyone can see those. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into what we're all here to do, and that's the Return to Learn update. Dr. John Bryant, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Craven, and members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to share with you the Return to Learn update for January 25th. I'm going to start this slide deck exactly as we have started each and every Return to Learn presentation to date to this point, which is focusing on our local health information as presented by the Harvard Global Health Institute, which presents data about our 7-day rolling average. And I'm going to notice the trend data as it relates to this particular graphic that you see here. We had 2 peaks, December 14th, and then on January the 11th, we're seeing that data start to trend down at this time. The number, if you were to look up today, as of January the 23rd, is 54.1, specifically as it relates to where this data is trending right now. Again, this is one of the key metrics that we've been attending to. One of the secondary metrics that we've been looking at is DHHS's County Alert System report. Would remind the board as we talk about this particular, that this published report comes out every 2 weeks. This is as of December the 8th. You see where Henderson County, the arrow designated here with a 5.4% 14-day percent positivity rate. On December 22nd, that rate was up above 13%. On January the 6th, it declined slightly to 12.7, and then as of January the 21st, that decline has continued to 10.9%. Again, Henderson County, as it relates to the county alert system, does remain in the critical red area as it relates to that, and as you can see from this particular chart, that continues across much of the state of North Carolina, despite the data trending down right now. Specifically to where we are, I've just highlighted this one section of the slide again, noticing that next to last column on the far right deals with hospitalization impact, and that is noted as a moderate impact right now. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. As of January 21st. It's critical to understand there's been a great deal of dialogue in addition to understanding the COVID positivity rates and the way that those metrics are affecting our community about the vaccine. And many of those questions center around vaccine eligibility for school system employees, teachers, support staff, and the personnel as one of the critical drivers for our safe operations. I would remind the board that the vaccination planning and specifically the information published by DHHS has been updated on more than one occasion. And the most recent graphic that you see in front of here details which groups are eligible right now. What are the active groups in our community and across the state for those who may receive the vaccine when it is available for them in their communities. And right now that's groups 1 and 2, which deals with older adults and then healthcare workers and folks who are working on the front line of healthcare. Older adults being those who are 65 and up in our community. So specifically, when we look at this information, I want to remind the board that there was a time when frontline essential workers, for which educators were included, were in 1B Group 2. That changed, and that groups 1 and 2, I'm reminded frequently by those who are administering the vaccine in our community, those are very large groups in Henderson County. So there is uncertainty right now around when the vaccine will be made eligible for educators and those of us that are considered frontline essential workers. What I can share with this board, and it is critically to understand this, is that we were doing all the necessary logistical planning in order that we can make our staff available, those who are going to choose to do so, that we would make that available to them as soon as that change in the guidance goes to Group 3. And we are so very fortunate to have tremendous leadership at the Henderson County Department of Public Health, tremendous leadership and our healthcare partners and our healthcare workers who are all working side by side on that effort to make sure that, again, educators, when we become an eligible group, will be able to receive that for those who choose to do so. And again, we know that that is a critical step as we move forward. I'd remind you again, we are part of a series of employees that are considered frontline essential workers. When you think about Group 3, we specifically in Henderson County Public Schools are talking about educators, teachers, support staff, administrative personnel, all the folks that make the school system run. But frontline essential workers in our community is a much larger group than even just educators. And so I highlight that here for you just as a reminder. We're talking about corrections officers, food and ag, postal service, manufacturing, grocery store, public transit, and the like. All of those fall into those categories specifically. A recap for us on whole is to talk about how we started the year as we made our plans in early January and over the break. We began on Plan C, or fully remote for all students, on January 7th. We've continued under Plan C for the duration of this month. We've been monitoring those community health trends, the trends that I spoke about in the earlier slides. We've also been monitoring very carefully our workforce stability. We've discussed on several occasions that workforce stability is one of the critical levers as it relates to our ability to safely instruct, serve, and supervise students in our schools and in our school buildings. We established a goal of transitioning back to Plan B on February 1st. We've had discussion about a goal of 4th and 5th grade students under Plan A at that same time. But then that last bullet is a key element that I want to share with this board as we get to the recommendations is a Plan A transition for 4 and 5 does acknowledge and needs to be carefully considered as it relates to the elimination of social distancing within those classrooms and on the school buses for elementary school students to be able to be transported to schools. Specific to our workforce stability tracking, we've got 3 data sets here I want to draw your attention to. In December, we've talked about what our employee absence tracking rates looked like. Essentially, from December 14th to 21st, we had an average of 169 employees out on any given day. And again, that's all employee groups across categories. And that could be an absence for any reason, okay? Not specifically just COVID related, but an absence for any reason. We had an average of 94 teachers that were out at that time, an average of 29 teacher assistants. You see that data in mid-January, from January 11th to the 15th. We had 89 employees absent, averaging that week, 54 of them being teaching staff, certified teaching staff, 13 of which were teacher assistants. And over this last period, as we prepare for this, January 19th to the 22nd, average number of employees is down to 79, and the average number of teachers absent is 44. You may be curious right now. You might be wondering, okay, what is the average number of teachers out in a normal year? If, again, normal is a word we ever get to use again. we all hope so. But in January of 2020, pre-pandemic, the average number of teachers out in the month of January was 44. So that number in that third column, 94 being that peak when we talked about school closures and the necessary decisions that we made at that time, in a normal school year, in the month of January last year, that year-over-year data was 44. Yes, ma'am.
We do need to remember that these Januaries are without students there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's correct. That's correct. But I would also remind the board that staff are reporting to work. So we're tracking that absenteeism as it relates to, again, they could be absent for any reason. It could be a circumstance at home. It could be an appointment, an issue, any of those kind of things. But the year-over-year data correlates with that. Yes, ma'am. When we look at the recommendations specifically for the school system at this time, when we consider those data points and the recognition of a goal that we have all shared about students returning to a face-to-face environment when we can safely do so, the recommendation comes to you as such. Plan A for all students pre-K through grade 3, as well as intensive intervention students beginning on February the 1st. Plan B for all students, that's an alternating A day, B day schedule for grades 4 through grade 12. With that in mind, again, I would recap those first two bullets by saying essentially that is returning to how we left it in December. We were under those exact same operations from September 21st all the way through December the 22nd. Those would be returning to that same, so taking that next step forward, returning to the operations that we took place in the fall. We would continue during that period of time to monitor community health trends and workforce stability. Cannot emphasize enough that bullet as it relates to what we've learned all the time is every day we know a little more, we see a little more, and we have to attend to a little bit more. We would continue our district communications, and specific to that bullet, our COVID reporting structures have been on pause while we've been on a fully remote environment. We've not been reporting to our COVID dashboard. We've suspended that reporting. We've not been making school affected calls specifically because everyone, again, is in a fully remote environment. We would return to that reporting on February 1st. So we would repopulate a dashboard that would begin clear as of February the 1st. We would begin totaling school affected cases, and we would return to a period of time where we're making calls directly to school communities as it related to positive cases for students who had attended face-to-face or staff who were present in a face-to-face environment. We felt like that was a critical tool in keeping our parents, our families, and our communities well informed of the conditions in their child's school environment. Our recommendation would maintain a goal of 4 and 5 students returning, but that Plan A date would be pushed out to March 1st, again, setting that flag further out as we monitor a safe return to school on February the 1st, that we would again have an opportunity to speak with this board on February 8th after a week of those operations and moving forward to continue our conversations. And again, that last bullet acknowledging that any conversation around Plan A implementation does eliminate the social distancing expectations within the environment and on the school buses. We know that among the strongest tools absent the vaccine to ensure safe operations in any space is attention to the 3 W's. The 3 W's that we've heard from the very beginning, that we would wear a face covering properly, everywhere, every day, all the time. That we would wash and disinfect our hands and our spaces, and we would do that with a frequency that can't happen enough. The doctor friends say to us recently that if you don't feel like you're washing your hands an obscene number of times, you're not doing it enough. You know, that you want to be doing that as frequently and regularly as possible. And then, of course, you want to be able to wait 6 feet apart to create that distance in that space, just as we did from September to December. With that in mind, the summary thoughts are those 4 bullets that we have shared with you, I believe, since July 20th. Every plan that we present at this time is a fluid model. This board has understood that. They have encouraged that and recognized that we have to attend to the data as it's presented to us at that time, that we will continue to work in close coordination with the Henderson County Department of Public Health and our partner agencies, that will be responsive to the updated direction that comes from DPI, DHHS, and otherwise, DHHS, of course, specifically being the governing body that may make a determination about vaccine eligibility for frontline essential workers. And we will continue to do our very best to meet the instructional obligation that we have to every child under our care every day. So, Mr. Craven, board members, I'll pause at that time. That's the recommendation of the leadership team. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
So just to recap, your recommendation to us today is K through 3 or pre-K through 3 would go back just like they were prior to Christmas, full-time, 5 days a week. And 4th grade through 12th grade would go back on an alternating A-B schedule,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
with Fridays being off for everyone there.
No, sir,
Oh, no.
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays.
I think a lot of people would love if you changed it to Fridays,
Yeah,
but we're
right.
going to leave it on Wednesdays. Yes, sir.
All right, so I'll go ahead and open the floor to any questions, comments, concerns from anyone from the board members based on this recommendation.
You first. John, can we buy the teachers' N95 mask?
I'm unable to answer that question for you right now. I know that at one time N95 masks were prioritized for healthcare environments specifically. I'm not sure what the market availability for them is right now, but that would be something that we could certainly look into.
And when high school kids come back, I'm very fearful that you're going to see a lot more, because they're big, social distancing's not there like it is in elementary school. But I'm fearful of how many cases we're going to have. But y'all thought about that?
We certainly have. Yes, ma'am. That's part of our discussions all the time. We recognize that every decision we make right now involves risk, whether that risk is in the grocery store or in a school environment or in our community. But specifically, we recognize the prioritization of the face-to-face opportunity for our kids. What we're going to be doing is emphasizing with every kid the importance of those 3 W's, making sure that we know that those are the tools that create safe environments for them and for the adults present as well. But it's going to be critically important in this case that we emphasize that with all students.
And with vaccine being so prioritized for the health department, are they pulling our school nurses?
The school nurses have been part of the vaccination effort up until this point, but we've received a commitment from the health department that our school nurses would return to the schools to which they were assigned when students return to face-to-face instruction. They have been a critical part of our contact tracing effort. I heard someone say recently that they should be considered for the Teacher of the Year award as well. Those school nurses have been doing extraordinary work on a daily basis, not just balancing both pieces, but when students return to a face-to-face environment, in this case, the school nurses would be doing so as well.
I have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
The lunch situation. When we're in Plan A, we have 22 students in a room. They're not socially distanced. We've already said that in Plan A. They're without masks for a period of time. Their teacher, if they're eating, obviously, if you're eating, you have to keep your mask off. Is there a possibility that we could get some out-of-classroom staff to break up these large groups? Someone who doesn't have lunch duty, possibly an AIG or an elective teacher?
We are open to every possible strategy, Ms. Caskey, as to how we can make sure that we maintain the safest environments possible.
Because I've been racking my brain over
Yes,
this.
ma'am, I do.
You
Absolutely.
know that, because I don't feel comfortable with a full classroom of students who are maybe 2 or 3 feet apart without masks. Obviously, they're talking to each other. We don't want them eating in silence like they're in prison. But we also, I guess I'm going to get to the next part. I never thought I would be talking about mortality rates at a school board meeting. I don't ever want to talk about mortality rates. But we have a lot of misinformation going around in those emails. And if you're receiving the same emails, I guess you are. We've had people citing a 99.96, 99.5 survival rate. I've researched Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, NIH, CDC, and that number is 1.7. It's not 0.04. They might be talking about for children, which we know is a smaller number. But when I think about our 2,000 adults that work for us, I mean, which 37 are we okay with? You know, I have a really hard time with acceptable risk when we're talking about people. I mean, for me, it's zero. These are the same people who would jump in front of your children and take a bullet. And I think a lot of the emails that we've received have been valid. I understand people's economic concerns. I have an office that has not had a worker in there for a year, and I've been paying rent for it, Biltmore Forest. So, I mean, I understand economic issues. I certainly understand our special needs students, and I love the way you've outlined that plan. I'm just, you know, Teacher Appreciation Day comes up on May 4th, and nothing says I value you more than talking about mortality rates and what's acceptable people in our community. And I know that what I'm saying is probably not popular. My daughter wrote her college essay on doing what's right instead of what's popular. But I'm concerned about Plan A. I've seen Plan B in action at Apple Valley Middle. I felt like there was great distancing. They did say that there are some days that they have larger sizes than others. I don't know how much that could be manipulated because I'm guessing you were trying to line it up with younger siblings. Is that
Yes,
the
ma'am.
reason? I wonder if it can be a voluntary situation if we had some of our high school students, for example, my daughter's an only child. I mean, if she needed to switch to B day instead of A day, so there were not 16 in that room, and then the next day 3 in that room. I mean, I know that all of these things sound like there's a lot of choreography, but we're talking about people's lives, so I'm willing to be a choreographer if need be. I mean, our teachers are magicians. I mean, each year they pull a rabbit out of a hat. This year they pulled out a dragon. There's no doubt about it. And it's discouraging to read some emails where I don't think people are giving our teachers the amount of credit that they deserve. I cannot believe how innovative the instruction has been. And I know it's not for everyone. And I know it's hard for our younger kids. And I definitely understand for our special needs kids. So, I mean, I feel that Plan B is this wonderful compromise until we could get this vaccine rolling, where we don't have to talk about mortality rates and acceptable risks.
Yes, ma'am. And if I might add to that, our educator hearts recognize the magic that is happening amidst the most difficult circumstances possible, the magic that is being demonstrated by teachers, by individual students, by parents who are serving as teachers, by folks across the community that are stepping in different ways, and recognizing that everybody is experiencing this so differently. And I can only empathize and say there are no easy answers for any of us right now. It is extraordinarily difficult to navigate this space on behalf of every individual feeling it and experiencing it in different ways. You touch on where our recommendation comes from. We have operated safely under Plan B. We know how to do that work. We have demonstrated an ability to do so. And certainly that comes with trepidation as well, because our care for every adult and every child is paramount. But we also know that that is felt differently by everyone based on how they receive that decision. But our goal is to serve and support everyone in the best ways we can.
Anyone else?
Yes. John, the ventilation and the windows can't be open when it gets cold, and going outside for little ones that they got to go outside with. So those teachers are going to be in there the whole time with them. And so eating, and there's not going to be PE outside and whatever. So, you know, I just want to mention that.
Yes, ma'am.
And another thing, we got a lot of emails talking about, well, private schools can go back. And I just want to make a statement about that. I checked on that, and I think 337 in our county is the biggest private school number. And I just want parents to know we have 13,500 compared to that. I mean, you know, we have schools that have 337, but 13,500 we got to be responsible for, and not just that 300 and something. So, and the other thing, John, you are still going to be able to take us back to see if it comes a big splurge of the COVID in our schools, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I think that that's the critical feature of whatever decision the board makes in terms of an approval moving forward, to continue to grant the discretion to the leadership team to make decisions about school level environments, classroom environments, just as we did under Plan B before, because we're attending to that information every day. And yes, ma'am, Ms. Case, we would appreciate that same discretion.
Okay. And can you tell me what made the administrative group decide to go from C to B? What were some factors that you really saw?
Sure. The factors that we've outlined since the beginning is that we recognize the trend data as it relates to community health. We understand the critical nature of the entire country right now at that time, but we also demonstrated again in the fall a safe ability to operate under conditions similarly to that. Our workforce is stabilized. We're tracking those school affected data cases and otherwise, and we'll continue to do that moving forward. I think we all recognize, again, the goal at some point in the very near future is that every child is able to return to school safely. Every staff member is able to instruct and interact with students safely, and that our community health will stabilize in that way. We know part of the way that we can do that right now for our community is to have our kids with us.
Mrs. Holt has a few things to say. Amy, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a few comments to make. I want to start out by reading a little blurb from an email public comment that we received, so that the public can hear this. This is from a pediatrician in our county who sees Henderson County children. And it states, we see 25 families a day per physician. We see them in a room 15 to 20 minutes at a time with their parents. Everyone wears a mask if they are able. We as an office have continued to do this every day, 7 days a week through the pandemic. We have had no cases of COVID-19 in our office staff that came from our office. We screen for illnesses. We take temperature at the door. We wear regular masks on the well side. This is very similar to what Henderson County Public Schools have done. It works. None, 0% of the cases in our staff over the past 10 months are related to work. So, I would like for us to keep that in mind, because in the first phase of our Plan B, we had also 0 cases in our schools that were transmitted through our schools. They all came from people out in the community and then them testing positive. In doctors' offices, they have these children removing their masks to test them for COVID. They're in a much more dangerous situation than we are in schools with our students and staff being in there. If our students and our staff continue to wear their masks and wait 6 feet apart and wash their hands, I think this can work. We've proven that this can work. We have to get these children back in school. We were talking about deaths from COVID. The suicide rate in youth is up exponentially because of children not being in school. The foster care cases are way up because of abuse that's going on at home because these children are not in school. These children need to be in school, and they need to be in school now. I personally would love to see if we could move, if it can be done, for 4th and 5th grade to come in that have IEPs, that have learning disabilities, come back in 4th and 5th grade for 5 days a week like we're doing in 3rd. I would like to phase in 4th and 5th grade and not wait until March 1st. I realize that our county is up, but the health director himself said the safest place for these children to be is in schools. And I know the difference in my daughter and the kindergartner that I work with every day, them being at home this past few weeks to them being in school is night and day. They're not emotionally as well as they have been. They're not in kindergarten. Just shut the computer off. We only go in virtual school just because it's what we have to do. Brooklyn is learning zero in kindergarten, and her teacher is one of the most outstanding kindergarten teachers I've ever seen in my life. But Brooklyn has autism, and she cannot do 4 hours on the computer. We're failing our kids by not allowing them to be in school, and I know that we can do it, and we can do it safely. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you, Mrs. Holt.
One more comment.
Yeah.
I agree with some things in that letter, but there's a difference between 20 minutes and 4 to 7 hours that teachers in the classroom with those kids.
Thank you. Mr. Bridges, Dr. Evans?
Well, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, the thing I despise more than anything that this pandemic has caused, or one of the things I despise more than anything, is it seemed to have caused a divide between our parents and our community that we've always had strong support for and our school staff. It's caused a divide. We all want the same things. There's not a day that goes by that I am monitoring my grandchildren's online learning that I don't hear teachers say, I can't wait to get you back. And I want parents to know, to reiterate what Mrs. Caskey and some of the others have said, our teachers are doing everything and standing on their heads to make this work. They want the children back. And I understand our teachers' reluctance, some of our teachers' reluctance, not all, some reluctance of going back. I hate it for them. I hate it for all frontline workers. I hate it for our essential workers, all of them. But I do think our children are better off in school, and I am in full support of this recommendation. We've got to ease back into it and see what happens. I'm not sure we need a whole month before we see what happens with fourth and fifth grade. I do think we need to get creative. We need to look and see if we can group kids creatively so that we can accommodate the virtual students with a virtual teacher. It may be across 2 teachers or across schools, as some school districts are doing. I know that's tough. I know that causes a lot of coordination and creativity. But if it will work for the safety of our children, that's what we need to do. Yes, I know that may mean changing a teacher assignment for a child. But again, if it's for the safety of our children, we need to be creative and find solutions. I want our community to come together. This is a strong school system with highly dedicated staff and teachers. And it's not us against them. We're all in this together for our children.
Thank
Great.
you. Yes, sir.
I'd like to commend our teachers. They've gone well beyond the expectations that they were first hired to do. Many of them have worked days and nights preparing for this pandemic. We didn't ask for it at all, but we got it, and we have to deal with it as best we can for the safety and welfare of our students and our community. I want our students back in school also, Dr. Bryant. One thing that we do need to mention, I think, is the mental health of our students. Many of them need socialization skills, and the only place they can get that is at school with their peers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Egoff?
I have 2 things. One, in some of the letters that we read, or at least I've read that sticks out in my mind, I've had a lot of people say this has been a lost year, and we're not, this is not, can't even count this as an educational year. We need to go back and repeat. And, I think that is the farthest from the truth. I think the teachers have really gone above and beyond with you're playing a deck of cards, and these are the cards that we've been dealt with, and they're doing an outstanding job in educating our kids. And so I don't want, believe me, I mean, I look around and I have 3 in public schools. And I know you have 1. I'm pointing at Miss Caskey. Sorry. Ms. Revis is taking care of 2 or 3. Mr. Craven, our chair, has 2, 3. And I know Dodd and Mr. Bridges, they have enormous people and experience with kids. But I just know that my 3 are still getting educated, and the teachers are doing a heck of a job with what's been going on. Second of all, hearing Amy, Miss Holt, how many 4th graders are IEP?
I don't know the number of just 4th grade off the top of my head, but we have looked closely at the numbers of students who are identified as exceptional children in 4th and 5th grade, and can certainly begin to determine what our options are for serving those kids under the plan that's recommended.
Because I like what Miss Revis has said, and I like what Miss Amy Lynn has said. We need to closely monitor this. I mean, if we go ahead with your recommendation, so how can we closely monitor it? If we gradually, like Ms. Revis said, 2 weeks. Well, I mean, if we had a smaller number of people that we were putting in the 4th grade, such as the IEPs, if that was not that many, see how they're doing, see how the teachers are doing, seeing that. I think give us, the board, the teachers, the parents, those involved in Henderson County Public Schools, a better idea of how bringing back the older children would be doing. That'd be a way of bringing them back and letting us know how it's doing, how it's going.
Yes,
if there's
sir.
not that many, but if it's
It used to be about 12.5 to 13% of our overall population were students with disabilities. So
they could come back in smaller groups, and we could see how. And that probably wouldn't hurt anything.
Well, the gradual monitoring piece that you touch on is really the critical element, because it is dependent on individual class size, the circumstance where those students are, the EC numbers that are specific to that particular environment, to that particular class, and otherwise. And so part of that is us paying attention, because of course they don't come in clean groups, just like we talk about class size every year. It's not as if there's 3 vacant seats at every school in every space. So part of that decision is making sure that we're doing what is right by every child and creating opportunity for every child, but monitoring that real carefully.
Yeah.
So we'll be glad to follow up with that in February.
So does that? I still like. I'm looking.
We have to determine who actually returns to school on February 1st.
Yeah.
We have a board meeting the very next Monday night. And so we'll have 1 week's worth of data to be able to talk with this group about what those class sizes look like and what the specific nature of those opportunities are to gradually start to increase. If that's the board's wish, we will have had 1 week of data at that point.
And when do we plan on meeting again?
February the 8th is our scheduled board meeting.
Could you give us that IEP number data before?
Yes, ma'am. I believe the number is 223 off the top of my head right now. I think that's the number total for the
Grades
student.
4 and 5 would be great to know.
Right,
because
but
I do believe that they need to be
Mhm.
in school.
You got some Trico?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, I'll say a few things. Dr. Evans, thank you for bringing up what you just brought up. I think the emails lately have gotten nastier and nastier ever since this has started, and the thousands or tens of thousands, it seems like I've read since early March. I do believe our teachers are doing a fantastic job with what they've been dealt, along with our kids as well. And this board is not trying to keep anyone's kid out of school. We're trying to make sure that we provide a safe space that they can learn and that our teachers can come to that's safe, and we can provide them with a quality education. All that being said, Dr. Bryant, what changed in your mind from our previous meeting when you were wanting to bring K through 5 back to now K through 3 and 4th and 5th grade wants to stay on B? What changed in the leadership's thoughts to change?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. The safest next step that we know is to not eliminate the things we know work, right? We can continue to talk about, like you said, plan A for grades 4 and 5, but I'll revisit what we've talked about from the very beginning is those class sizes have no cap. Those students are larger and often served in smaller square footage environments. And what we demonstrated from September 21st until December 22nd was the ability to safely operate across all of those groups. Continuing to set that goal says we're going to keep monitoring the data and monitoring the trend data of those to create a greater risk environment unnecessarily when we step back into it was not the recommendation of the leadership team. It's not the recommendation that we're bringing forward. We recognize, as Dr. Revis has said, as every member on this board has said, we want every child in school safely. We want every staff member to be able to serve those children in school safely. And we recognize the best way to do that is incrementally, to do that well, to monitor that to Mr. Egoff's point, and then to make sure that we're attending to how that works moving forward.
Okay. Well, from here, is there any other comment on what Dr. Bryan has showed us so far today? If not, I think this kind of breaks down into two parts for me. I think K through 3 has to go back to Plan A immediately. I have a kindergartner at home that I'm fighting with, just like Amy does. When we started off originally in March, he didn't know what kindergarten was or what school was, and so he didn't know what he was missing. And then we successfully got through Christmas, and then now we've been in this virtual environment, and he hates it, and it's a struggle for me and my family, and I know a lot of other families out there. My second grader, she's doing well, but she certainly misses her friends. My 8th grader, he's just doing whatever. And so I think it's kind of a consensus from what I'm hearing that we believe K through 3 should come back to Plan A. Is that fairly correct or no? That is not correct. All right, well, then I'm going to make a motion, and then we can vote based on that motion, okay? All right, I'm going to do two separate motions here, Kathy. So my first motion is going to be this. I'd like to make a motion that pre-K through 3rd grade come back Plan A fully starting February 1st. I would also like to have 6th grade through 12th grade come back on Plan B, that's the most that we can do per the governor's orders anyways. And then we're going to go ahead and segment 4th and 5th grade. We can have a little bit more discussion on that. So my motion is, once again, K through 3 full-time coming back next Monday, February 1st, Plan A, and 6 through 12, Plan B. Do I hear a second?
Jay Egoff, second.
All right, I'm going to do a voice vote on this motion. Well, first of all, is there any discussion on this motion that I put forward? If there is none, I'm going to do a voice vote. Mr. Bridges, yes or no on that motion?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Egoff?
Yes.
Mrs. Caskey?
No.
Dr. Revis?
Yes.
And Mrs. Holt?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. That motion passes 6-1. So the second issue we have here is really 4th and 5th grade. You know, we came into this hoping that we were going to be able to have our 4th and 5th graders on Plan A. Clearly, that's not the direction that our leadership team thinks that we should take at this time, and they think that we should be on Plan B with those kids. And so I open the floor for more discussion on that. If not, I will take a motion from whoever would like to make a motion based on what we've discussed here.
So we said 223 is IEPs. And I should know this, but again, I sell cars in my pastime. But how many total 4th and 5th graders in
About
the
1,000
district?
students in each grade
Excuse me,
level.
I'm sorry.
There are about 1,000 students in each grade level. I don't have the exact
Okay,
numbers in
so-
front of me. So
okay.
it's about a little over 20%.
Like you said, 13%. So that's good math. Okay.
The buses really concern me if we bring 4th and 5th graders back now, because they could be 60 on a bus. That's no social distancing whatsoever if we brought 4th and 5th grade back with this.
Yes, ma'am. As we've kind of outlined on a couple of occasions, you're exactly right. The social distancing is not just a classroom concern, it's a transportation concern as it relates to how we get kids to school safely on a daily basis.
And let me say something about that. And I agree 100%. Is there a way that we find out, like, I might send my kids on the bus because it's convenient? I remember there on the way to Atkinson to drop off my elementary my youngest, we would sometimes drive past somebody that wasn't 30 seconds from the school, but they're waiting on the bus. That person could obviously get a ride to school, not have to take the bus. I mean, is there going forward addressing the busing situation? Can we find out, who can go out of their way and have their a parent take them? We might find that we have less people riding the bus if we say, hey, look, we're only capped at. I mean, is there anything we can do with that?
It would be another one of the things that we'd be monitoring, Mr. Egoff, just like as we talked about the number of students that choose to return on February 1st, should they now have the opportunity to do so, the number of students that are on the ridership, because our last data was December data. So we'd be looking at what happens over the course of the next week.
Because people may choose, they say, hey, look, we can go back, but we have a busing issue. They might say, well, the parents might say, well, you know what? I will take my child to school and I'll be 30 minutes late for work, but I'd rather them be at school than not. So we'll handle the busing situation. We might find that out with a lot of people.
Yes, sir.
But by law, every child has the right to ride a bus, correct?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We certainly have not provided that transportation to everyone who wanted it. That's correct in this case.
All right, I'm gonna leave a softball again for somebody else who wants to take it. I'll take a motion for you to send them 4th and 5th grade back to A, or I'll take a motion to send 4th and 5th grade back to B. Anybody like to make that motion?
I move they go
I'd
back.
like to make a motion.
Right.
I've got a motion on the floor from Mrs. Case. Mrs. Case, please go ahead.
I move we send them back on B.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I second that.
Any other discussion? We have a motion on the floor to send 4th and 5th grade back on Plan B. Discussions?
Could we add on that our IEP students can go the 4 days?
Whatever motion she would like to add. It's her
I'd love to
motion.
get our IEP kids back
It's
in.
according to how many they are.
Again, yes,
Right.
Ms. Caskey, I would want us to be able to determine where we
Okay.
could still follow B within that. So I'll be glad to come back on
Okay.
February 8th with a follow-up to that.
So the motion for Ms. Case is 4th and 5th grade on Plan B with a second by Mrs. Caskey, and then the leadership team will look at bringing our IEP and 504 kids back if that's a possibility, and will report back to us on February 8th.
Now I have a question, and I'm not very good with Robert's rules. I know we have a motion, we have a second.
Yep.
Ms. Holt was going to say something. Can we bring this up during discussion,
Sure,
or
you can discuss as much as you want right now.
I don't? What were you going to say, Ms. Holt?
I was going to move for Plan A for 4th and 5th, but she's already made her motion.
Well, if this motion fails, we'll certainly circle back around to your motion.
And another thing, and I know we keep discussing this, but there is a way. Is there a way? And we don't know that yet, so I guess we just can't do it. But again, I'd like to leave here knowing that there's a plan to gradually bring back 4th and 5th to see what's going on, not just all of a sudden push them all in there and then see what happens. I mean,
Yep.
but we
That's what
can't.
we'll look at that when we come back on February 8th. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I agree. I agree with Mr. Egoff here, and I do agree with Amy. I think those kids need to be in full time as well, and I think Dr. Revis said it as well. A month is a long time. We're
Yes.
approaching the end of the school year here, right? And so I do believe that on February 8th, I'd like to have more of a plan on how we can try to get them in sooner
Yes.
if possible. Or if we can't and it's not safe, then we're getting these IEP kids, the 504 kids. We're gradually moving in
Yes.
that right direction to have our 4th and 5th graders in there as well.
Yes.
That's what I'd like for all of you guys to make happen for us. Okay. That's just an aside, but like I said, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this motion? If not, then I will take a vote. Mr. Bridges, yes or no on this motion?
Yes.
Mrs. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Egoff,
Yes.
Ms. Caskey,
Yes.
Dr. Revis,
Yes.
Mrs. Holt. Mrs. Holt? Matthew? You're muted, Mrs. Holt.
Hey, sorry, it took me. Yeah, I'm off mute now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes or no to the, yes, we can. Yes or no to the motion? on the floor?
Yes. So, yes.
All right.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. 4th and 5th grade will start back on Plan B with a goal to try to get them in March 1st, but hopefully prior to that. If there's no other questions or comments or concerns, I'll go ahead and I'll take a motion to
I
adjourn.
have a concern.
Yes, sir, please.
I would like Dr. Bryant, with his clout, if you have any clout with the,
Oh, he
with the
does.
health
I
department,
appreciate the compliment.
to
Yes, sir.
encourage as much as you can our staff, our teachers, our instructional staff, and our support staff to get the vaccine as soon as possible.
Yes, sir. It would be my sincere pleasure to offer that encouragement. I know that it is the shared desire of the leadership team to offer that. To quote Mr. Smith one more time, we know it is the sword. It is the first weapon we've had to moving forward in this way. And so we look forward to a time when our educators are eligible for that vaccination. And I look forward to encouraging everyone who is willing to do so to participate in that effort. Thank you, Mr. Bridges.
All right, without any other questions, yes, ma'am.
So what's going to happen is we're going to see who comes. I'm just repeating this for the public. What's going to happen is we're going to see who is coming back live on February 1st. And then from that, Dr. Bryant and the leadership team are going to bring us a recommendation on February 8th to hopefully get the IEP kids back into school. And we're hoping to do that sometime in February. And then if that's possible, then we'll discuss the March 1st, like the plan is now, to start back 4th and 5th, all of them, and approve that hopefully.
Correct.
Well, and again, I think, Amy, this is Jay, what Ms. Rivers also said was she thought maybe the 4 weeks was a long time to determine. So I would encourage us also to look at not only the IEPs, but what if you bring back 4th mid-month? Or, just take a look, just have some options on the 8th. Let's look at them and we can vote on them. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a week early, do 4th grade, then, before 5th or something.
Instead of bringing them all in.
John, are most of these IEPs self-contained or are they included in the classes?
No, we're talking about students who are identified for a myriad of reasons who would be supported in different ways across the board. So we'll be looking carefully at how each student is served, what the opportunities are to support those students, and what the opportunities are to be creative, as Dr. Evis was saying, about our solutions to have students transition back into the environment.
Because some of the IEPs could be coming back with Plan B, correct?
Oh, certainly. Yes, ma'am.
They just won't be coming back every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Right.
Okay.
And quite honestly, some of the parents of those children may not want them back.
That's correct. That's why that monitoring piece is so important, because everybody we know feels maybe differently today than they felt a month ago or 2 weeks ago. And we will know more on February the 8th when we come back to you at that time.
Yeah, just bring us as much data as you can in the next 2 weeks on 4th and 5th grade, especially, and of course, keeping us up to date on our workforce and how that's working out. Any other news from the Department of Public Health on vaccinations and how we can help them get our folks vaccinated in that next phase is all welcome news there. But if there's no,
I just want to say too, I think if our parents can be mindful that our teachers read our public comments,
oh, they do.
and we're all trying to do the same thing, and I think we all need a little bit of grace in this, and that where none of us have worked through a pandemic. I don't think I look that old, so I didn't do the last one. And I think we're all trying to do what's right. There was a comment that it's not your responsibility to look out for the community, and I would disagree with that, because love thy neighbor actually includes that, and that can't just be something that you say on a Sunday. So I think if we could possibly all be a little gentler when we're talking about our teachers who are fighting as hard as they can to do the best job they can.
Amen.
And I want to thank you guys, and especially Scott, for giving us those daily accounts of how many cases we have and whatever, because that's really helpful.
Yes, ma'am. That's our pleasure. We want you to be as informed as possible so that you can make the decisions that are in the best interest of our community. Absolutely.
Anyone else? All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Bridges, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Egoff?
Yes.
Ms. Caskey?